MSW Media.
News with swearing. Daily beans, daily beans. Daily beans, daily beans.
Hello and welcome to the Daily Beans for Monday, October 16th, 2023. Today, House Democrats refuse to help the GOP as Jim Jordan schedules a speaker vote for Tuesday. A former IRS contractor has pled guilty to stealing tax returns and giving them to the press. The Department of Justice has decided to retry a healthcare fraudster for 6 counts that the jury was hung on after Trump pardoned him. Judge Beryl Howell has awarded more sanctions against Rudy Giuliani in the Ruby Freeman-Shamos defamation suit. The Truth social media partner is returning $1 billion of investments after many asked for their money back. Lauren Boebert has spent campaign cash at her Beetlejuice boyfriend's bar. The U.S. Labor Relations Board says Elon Musk illegally fired a Twitter employee. An Illinois man has killed a 6-year-old Muslim boy and stabbed his mother in a hate crime. And Secretary of State Antony Blinken gives a press conference in Cairo about President Biden's newly appointed ambassador to lead humanitarian efforts in Gaza. I'm Allison Gill.
And I'm Dana Goldberg.
Hey, Dana, happy Monday. I need a little bit of uplifting tales. Can you tell us how the HRC gala went with President Biden and Dr. Jill Biden?
Well, first of all, Dr. Jill Biden and President Biden came out. Dr. Biden spoke first and was very sweet because, at that point there was a standing ovation for Jill, and Joe Biden sort of decided he was going to be like, all right, I guess I'll leave, which was really funny. They have a great sense of humor and a great love together. One of my highlights, though, when I was in the green room, I had this moment where I was in front of so much Black Hollywood royalty. It was Felicia Rashad, Debbie Allen, Lena Waithe, Shonda Rhimes. They're all sitting on a couch next to me talking to each other. It was fucking bizarre and most beautiful in the most incredible way. So it was amazing to be amongst such incredible people. Raised over $150,000 for the Human Rights Campaign last night. Did my job, did it well. And I wore a corset. My boobs were out. I felt real good about it. I just want to say that. I don't always do the feminine route, but I felt good. I felt good.
That's amazing. And you looked amazing. And all the photos that I'm seeing and videos I'm seeing, just what an incredible room you had to work with. So thank you, everyone who was there.
Thank you. There's so much sadness and pain in the world right now. It did feel so good to be in a room that was uplifting and celebratory. And we're all there for equity and to fight for the good fight. So he was healing in many ways.
Yeah. And that's our empathetic president and his amazing wife.
Yeah.
They do that. They
do.
Bring that vibe wherever they go. Well, thank you so much. $150,000. Incredible work, my friend. Absolutely amazing. Later in the show, I'm going to be joined by Marcus Flowers. You'll remember he ran against Marjorie Taylor Greene a few elections back. He is now co-founder of missiondemocracy.org, and we're going to discuss that and what he's doing. And that'll be later in the show. But first, we have a lot of news to get to. So we're gonna divide this up, and we're going to start with some quick hits.
And to make a long story short, too late.
First up, Donald Trump is returning to New York, to the scene of the crime, to attend his civil fraud trial tomorrow as Michael Cohen is set to take the stand. Then he's going to be deposed in the civil suit brought by Pete Strzok, my co-host on Cleanup on Aisle 45, and Lisa Page. We will keep you posted on how that day goes for him.
Thank you, AG. And Democrats are standing firm in their refusal to bail out House Republican majority as it struggles to elect a new speaker 10 days after booting Rep. Kevin McCarthy. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries said, and I quote, House Republicans have selected as their nominee to be Speaker of the People's House the chairman of the Chaos Caucus, a defender in a dangerous way of dysfunction and an extremist extraordinaire. And House Minority Whip Catherine Clark labeled Jordan as insurrectionist and said he would be on a glide path to becoming Speaker if not for the unified opposition of Democrats. Now, Jim Jordan has called for a speaker vote tomorrow at noon Eastern, so grab a snack, tune in, get the popcorn, or better yet, pack a lunch. It's going to be a long day. Last count, Jim was 55 votes short of the 217 needed to win. That is a lot of votes and a lot of Democrats that would have to support Jim. Not going to happen.
Not going to happen. And the latest that we've just heard, actually, is little breaking news. There are at least 20 Republicans who refuse to support Jim Jordan after he announced his vote. That's going to happen tomorrow. That's at, I believe, noon Eastern. And, when you're that many short, probably more, if you don't have an opposition, like an opponent for Jim Jordan, you could be in a lot of trouble, because if you don't drag at least 211 people in there, you don't have a quorum, and then you elect Hakeem Jeffries. So the Republicans have put forward, or they say they're going to put forward, somebody to run against Jim Jordan, and they'll do it during that vote. They haven't said who it's going to be, but, like you said, pack a lunch. All right, digital acquisition, that DWAC, that, which is the SPAC for Trump's Truth Social.
Yeah.
They fundraised all the money and then did it and went public, which was against violating, SEC rules. Well, anyway, they've just returned $467 million after investors demanded it back. Then they added that they're going to return the remaining $533 million to investors. I don't know why, just because, but they're giving back the entire $1 billion that they raised. It's not clear what's driving the refund, though they've all been under federal and criminal investigation and SEC investigation for some time. We'll let you know when we learn more, but this could be because they have to. I don't know. We'll see.
Oh, my God. And, I love this story. It's just a quick one, but before Lauren Boebert and her date were thrown out of a local theater show of Beetlejuice for being disruptive and highly fucking inappropriate in front of children, her campaign spent hundreds of dollars at his bar, by the way, who hosts drag shows, so I wouldn't be surprised if it was that one. The Colorado Congresswoman's campaign put down $317 in late July at Hooch Craft Cocktail Bar. Classy, in Aspen, Colorado, which, as I said, is a gay-friendly bar that hosts the drag shows, which only raises eyebrows because of Boebert's anti-LGBTQ plus political stance. Also raises eyebrows because, from what I understand, he's a Democrat. So, there's that too for her.
Yeah, and she said it was a first date, and then she said she stopped dating him because he was a Democrat, but according to some drag queens who work at his bar, they've been dating for a long time, and she's been dropping money at the Hooch for a while. All right, Hooch, appropriately named, I think.
Oh, boy.
Judge Beryl Howell. Judge Beryl Howell has granted Shane Moss and Ruby Freeman most of what they asked for in their last sanctions motion against Rudy Giuliani. It's a lot. There's a lot of evidence Rudy's not allowed to bring in, and there's a lot of assumptions that the jury is going to get to make about Rudy Giuliani, although they probably already would. But now they legally can. Pete Strzok and I are going to cover that, everything that was granted, along with the backstory, and we'll give you some context. We'll do all that on this Wednesday's episode of Clean Up on Aisle 45.
All right, and last quick hit. The U.S. Labor Relations Board alleged Friday that Elon Musk illegally fired an employee in retaliation for her internet post challenging its return to office policy. In the complaint, a regional director of the U.S. National Labor Relations Board, which is the NLRB, accused X, as we know was formerly Twitter, of violating the federal law that prohibits punishing employees for communicating and organizing with others about their working conditions. So we're going to keep an eye on that story for you.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. I mean, that's what, 7 lawsuits against Elon Musk now, plus
hot mess.
A couple of federal criminal investigations and some SEC investigations. Yeah. Just put him right up there with Rudy Giuliani and the Trump Truth Social SPAC for how many investigations they have going on at once. All right, we have a lot of news to get to, but we're going to take a real quick break. So everybody stick around. We'll be right back. Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the Hot Notes. Hot Notes. All right, first up, Secretary of State Antony Blinken gave a press conference in Cairo on Sunday, and here's what he said. He said, quote, "What I've heard from virtually every partner was a determination, a shared view that we have to do everything possible to make sure this doesn't spread to other places, a shared view to safeguard innocent lives, a shared view to get assistance to Palestinians in Gaza who need it, and we're working very much on that. I made clear that it must not be business as usual with Hamas going forward. At the same time, as I said, we are determined to do everything we can to address the needs of the people of Gaza. Civilians should not have to suffer for Hamas's atrocities. We are now very actively engaged with countries in the region, with the UN, with Israel, to make sure, to the best of our ability, that people can get out of harm's way and that the assistance they need, the food, water, and medicine, can get in. Today, the president appointed one of our most senior diplomats, one of our most experienced diplomats, Ambassador David Satterfield, to lead our humanitarian efforts. Ambassador Satterfield was previously ambassador to Lebanon and Turkey. He's been here in the region for a long time. He'll actually be here tomorrow to start working on these efforts to make sure we're coordinating everything, moving assistance into people who need it and helping people get out of harm's way. From here, we're headed back to Israel. And I want an opportunity to share everything that I've heard and that I've learned over the last few days visiting with our other partners and to talk about the way forward with our Israeli allies and friends. First, there's a determination in every country I went to make sure this conflict doesn't spread. I had a very good conversation with President El-Sisi. Egypt has put in place a lot of material support for people in Gaza, and Rafah will be opened. We're putting in place with the UN, with Egypt, with Israel, with others, a mechanism by which to get the assistance in and to get it to people who need it. And that's exactly why Ambassador Satterfield is now taking this on. The president appointed him today. He'll be here on the ground tomorrow to work out all the practical details so we can move this forward. I don't think we can be more clear that when it comes to Israel's security, we have Israel's back. And again, we've backed that up not only with the words that we're saying, but with what we're actually doing. I did have very good conversations with the Crown Prince in Saudi Arabia and here in Egypt with President El-Sisi, and also heard, I think, a lot of good ideas about some of the things we need to do moving forward, including practical ideas on getting assistance to Palestinians in Gaza who are in need, but also good and important conversations about the future and where we hope, ultimately, together, we can bring this in a much more positive way. So that is the from the press conference of Antony Blinken in Cairo this Sunday. That is the latest.
Thank you, AG. This one's from Zoe Tillman at Bloomberg. Now, a former Internal Revenue Service contractor pleaded guilty to stealing secret tax return information about former President Donald Trump and thousands of the wealthiest Americans and leaking it to two news organizations. Now,
Hero.
Yeah, I'm not mad about this. Yep. Charles Littlejohn, 38. I would call him Big John. Charles Littlejohn, 38, admitted Thursday in a Washington federal court that he stole data about Trump and wealthy Americans and gave that information to media outlets between August of 2019 and November of 2020. He pleaded guilty to a single charge that carries a prison term as long as 5 years, but likely faces an estimated range of about 8 to 14 months, and that's according to his plea deal. Well, U.S. District Judge Ana Reyes accepted the guilty plea from Littlejohn despite an objection from Trump's attorney, of course, Alina Habba, who spoke during the hearing and called the leak an atrocity, an egregious breach. Okay, Mr. I took secrets from our country and left them in the bathroom. Habba asked the judge to impose the maximum prison term if the deal went forward. She also urged the Justice Department to further investigate if other individuals were involved. Littlejohn shared Trump's information with the New York Times and tax data about the nation's billionaires, including Ken Griffin, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, all of that shared with ProPublica. Now, the news outlet had noted in the series it published about the tax data that it covered more than 15 years. Reyes said that although she didn't see grounds to reject Littlejohn's guilty plea, she agreed with Habba that it was unacceptable for people to take the law into their own hands and vowed there would be severe consequences. The judge addressed Littlejohn near the end of the hearing, delivering a brief story of U.S. privacy laws related to taxpayer information and stressing that secrecy was needed to encourage people to be truthful in reporting to the IRS. She said, "I cannot overstate how troubled I am." She said that to Littlejohn, who sat watching her at a table in the courtroom with his hands clasped at the table. And she sounds like she's scolding him, but, out of the side of her mouth. I'm not saying that she did this, but she's like, "This is bad, but thanks a lot. You should never do this. But it's kind of cool that you did. Never do this again."
Yeah, I mean, it is illegal to steal and release people's tax returns. Hello, Jim Jordan and your IRS whistleblowers and Hunter Biden. But, 8 to 14 months is what Littlejohn could face. So we'll keep an eye on that for you and the sentencing. The judge said that he should be severely punished for this. I just want to high five that guy. That's all I want to do. I mean, I know it's illegal. I know I'm supposed to be all law and order and lawful neutral and lawful good and all that stuff. But man, these guys don't pay their fucking taxes.
I know.
It's like Reality Winner and the information about Russia's interference in our election. Or Ellsworth. It's illegal, but
I was just going to say, I know we talked about that, but if you haven't listened to the Onward podcast with Rosie and Reality Winner, we mentioned it before, just because AG brought it up, go listen to it. Listen to that one episode. It'll blow your fucking mind what they did to her.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Now, next up from The Guardian, and content warning. This is violence and hate crimes. A 71-year-old man in Plainfield, Illinois, has been charged with murder and hate crimes after stabbing a child and his mother because they're Muslim in an attack that killed a 6-year-old boy and left the adult seriously wounded. In a statement posted to the Will County Sheriff's Office social media page, law enforcement responded to an emergency call made by a 32-year-old woman who alleged her landlord had attacked her with a knife. The Will County Sheriff's Office said, quote, detectives were able to determine that both victims in this brutal attack were targeted by the suspect due to them being Muslim and the ongoing Middle Eastern conflict involving Hamas and the Israelis. On the scene, officers found the 71-year-old suspect sitting upright on the ground near the home's driveway, and inside found 2 stabbing victims, the 32-year-old woman and 6-year-old boy, who each suffered over a dozen stab wounds to their chest, torso, and arms. The suspect was identified as 71-year-old Joseph M. Zuba. Police say he was the landlord. Zuba was charged with murder, 2 counts of hate crimes, and other offenses. The child was transported to a local hospital. He was pronounced deceased. The woman is hospitalized in serious condition, but is expected to survive.
Thank you so much, AG. All right, this one's from The Post. Philip S. Forms beat the system. Or so it seems. Less than 5 years into a 20-year sentence for his role in a massive fraud scheme, bankrolling a high-flying Miami Beach lifestyle of luxury cars, designer clothing, high-priced escorts, S. Forms walked out of a federal prison thanks to who? Donald Trump, who granted him clemency in the waning days of his presidency. But S. Forms' reprieve is now in peril. The Biden Justice Department is seeking to retry him, a move made possible because the jury that convicted him reached no verdict on 6 counts, including the most serious charge of conspiracy to commit healthcare fraud. Well, because Trump's clemency order was silent on those charges, prosecutors say that they are able to take him back to court. Awesome. Former prosecutors say a retrial is a chance to correct a grievous mistake, and that Trump bypassed long-standing protocols to grant clemency to a corrupt nursing home executive. If the Justice Department succeeds, S. Forms could be sent back to prison, undoing Trump's executive order that made him a free man. This is a quote in An Opportunity for Justice. This said Paul Pelletier, a former federal prosecutor for 27 years who led the agency's fraud section before it criminally charged S. Forms, closed with, "We use the law to hold people accountable as best we can." Now, S. Forms was not a Trump donor. Campaign records show that, unlike many who received clemency. He wasn't a political loyalist. Public records show he registered as a Republican in 2008, but never voted. And he wasn't a celebrity like others who made the clemency list. Now, it's not clear precisely what led Trump to accept S. Forms' case or who ultimately persuaded him to do that. A Trump spokesperson did not respond to interview requests, and the White House counsel Pat Cipollone and senior White House advisor Jared Kushner, under Trump, of course, Trump's son-in-law, who were copied on the letter urging the president to commute S. Forms' sentence, they didn't respond to requests for comment. On December 22nd of the 2020 year, the White House announced S. Forms' commutation. The press release reflected the concerns raised in the memo, saying he has been devoted to prayer and repentance and is in declining health. Okay. Now, a date for his retrial is scheduled to be chosen in November, 1 month before his 3 years of supervised release are scheduled to end.
Yeah, and this could kick off a legal fight as to whether or not clemency extends to hung counts. Do you know what I mean?
I do.
Like, because the clemency, the commuting and pardon power of the president is very broad. And I imagine he will make the argument, hey, I was commuted, I was pardoned. So that's for everything I did in connection with this trial. So you can't, I think he'll argue that you can't retry me for the 6 hung counts. But we'll see. We'll see what ends up happening, because it's the same, like, behavior. It was like his crime garnered 26 counts and he was guilty on 20 and hung on 6. The jury was hung on 6. If I were that defense attorney, I'd be like, this is all the same set of behaviors which were pardoned. So you won't, I would argue that you can't be retried for those 6, but the Justice Department has feels like they have a strong enough argument to do it. So more power to them. We'll see where the law comes down. All right, everybody, we're going to be right back with Marcus Flowers. You don't want to miss this interview. Stick around. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Honored today to be joined by my friend, former congressional candidate for Georgia's 14th against Marjorie Taylor Greene and chair of Mission Democracy. Please welcome Marcus Flowers. Hi, Marcus. How are you?
Hey, Allison. I'm good. How's everything going?
Everything is great. It was, first of all, great to see you at Glenn Kirshner's Justice Gathering, the first of which where we get to talk about indictments instead of investigations. So thanks for being there.
Likewise. It's my pleasure to join. get the invite. I was in DC for a couple of other things, and Glenn said, "Hey, come on by." Had a great time. It's good to put a lot of faces with names of people I'd followed on Twitter or on social media, and heard a lot about and read a lot about, and got to meet a lot of good people there who are all fighting for justice in America. So,
Absolutely. And now you co-founded Mission Democracy, and you did that. It's a bipartisan group.
Correct.
You did that, I believe, earlier this year. You released one of your first ads. And there's some great people who are working with you, like Denver Riggleman, who is former, I believe he was in the Freedom Caucus for a while.
Yes, that's right. He was.
And then former National Security Advisor to Mike Pence, Olivia Troy, is also working with you. Tell me a little bit about what prompted you to put this organization together and what Mission Democracy's mission is.
After the campaign, I still wanted to stay in the fight for, democracy and the things that I thought were important that people needed to know. And the one thing that I thought a lot of people didn't understand was that we are on the path to fascism. So, I talked with a few of my friends, Olivia being one of them, and, we all seem to agree that, whether we see policy the same way or not, we all agree on the process and that democracy is worth fighting for. So we got together, started Mission Democracy in an effort to, educate and laser focus on those districts and swing states where, people are voting for representatives like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Lauren Boebert or Jim Jordan or Paul Gosar, people who are being misled by their representatives, who are being misled by, frankly, certain types of media, far-right outlets like, Fox News, OAN, Newsmax. We want to counter that argument and let people know and see what's really at stake here. Our democracy itself is what's at stake. And if we don't elect leaders who believe in the process, who believe in our institutions, who are willing to fight for democracy and put aside policy differences and not be there just for the chaos, as we're seeing this week in Congress with Matt Gaetz and Marjorie Taylor Greene and ousting of Speaker McCarthy. These are things that are dangerous for our democracy. We want to have that conversation with people. And look, it's a bipartisan group. There are Democrats, myself, I'm a Southern Democrat. We've got Denver, Olivia, former Republicans, Joe Walsh, former Republican independent now, Matt Littman, who, was a part of 98%, came over to our cause and is our executive director. It's just a group of bipartisans who believe in democracy and know what's important and want to let people know what the dangers that we're facing in this country are. So that's our mission.
Yeah, and it's working too. I mean, the fundraising numbers are just in from Colorado's 3rd district, right? And we've got Adam Frisch, the Democrat, raising $3.4 million, and Boebert is down around $800,000. So this is working.
It's working. I mean, you get out there and you talk to people and have those, they're tough conversations, but you got to have honest conversations with people, meet them where they are and talk about what's important. People like Boebert, she didn't have a policy to stand on. She's a chaos agent. People like Marjorie Taylor Greene, they're chaos agents. They're just flamethrowers who don't understand how dangerous their rhetoric really is to our country. And we're going to continue counter-programming that and showing people, here's what's at stake when you take away women's rights to decide what to do with their bodies. When you start banning books, when, you have a Supreme Court that's, full of corrupt people who are, taking trips and, hanging out with billionaires who have cases before the court. These are things that are dangerous. And we've got to talk to those people and have those, tough conversations about what's at stake here.
And let's talk about some of those tough conversations and the policy purity, because, we see somebody like Cassidy Hutchinson come forward and testify truthfully and put the truth out there, albeit a bit late. But, there's a lot of fear-based keeping in line that was going on. And this kind of fight for democracy can create some strange bedfellows. And this isn't specifically aimed at, some like my friend Olivia Troy, who's voting Democrat, people who are voting Democrat, but people who may still vote Republican, just not for fascist Republicans. And then, of course, have a long history of terrible policy. How do we get around that problem? Because I see there's a lot of pushback from folks in the Democratic Party saying we shouldn't give any of these folks the time of day because of their past policies. What would you say to that kind of an argument? Because it is a real pushback that I'm seeing.
It's not an invalid argument, I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing I would also say, and countering that. If we let someone like Donald Trump regain the presidency, he is going to destroy our democracy. Full stop. And then our policies and our politics won't matter. It'll become a zero-sum game. So we've got to, we can go back to arguing about policies later, and, you got to have two strong parties in this country who are both A, rooted in reality, B, willing to sit down and negotiate in good faith with one another to get the job done for the American people. You have to have that. But if we lose our democracy, none of that matters.
Yeah, and I think those that would rather divide us and have a better chance at getting a dictator or authoritarian into power, those who would, those bad actors, the Putin caucus, I think they would like to see us fighting with other pro-democracy people. And it's not unheard of. In fact, it has happened before where the bad actors on the right would get the Bernie people fighting with the Hillary people
exactly
to crack our unity, and that was just within one party. And so I see it as easier for these bad actors to drive a wedge between us and rhinos, I guess is the best way to describe them, by pointing out our differences. And I'm worried that people will kind of fall for that again.
Putin's had a good week this week. With the chaos that's going on in Congress. And he loves it anytime that we can't get anything done. Now, Democrats have been delivering in spite of, the chaos in the House Republican caucus. But, the fight over funding for Ukraine, that's, it's ridiculous. And Putin's loving that. What he wants to hear is, they're going to stop funding Ukraine so that we can just roll right over them.
And they're already taking advantage of that. They're
Absolutely.
putting out statements. Peskov is putting out statements that the unity in the West is crumbling. It's diminishing.
Absolutely.
And it's fatigue. And that's where they find this is a common practice. They've done it for decades and decades. They come in, they swoop in, they find differences between us, drive wedges between us, crack our party, and use that to get a majority of people, albeit a minority of Americans, to vote for their autocratic preferred candidate.
Absolutely. And that's, again, that brings me right back to what it is that we're fighting for. I see that, and, some of my colleagues will disagree with me as far as the numbers go, but I think there's a not insignificant number of Americans who've been radicalized, by the propaganda that some of it comes out of Russia, some of it comes out of other state actors, but it's being spouted from the mouth of our representatives in Congress. And those same talking points are being used on, far-right networks. And people have been radicalized. Coming from my background, intelligence and electronics warfare, I spent a decade in combat zones in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've been all over the world, probably the worst places that you could think of in service to this country. And I've seen what happens when you go down that path, what it leads to, that authoritarian, that strong man that certain people cling to because, he's fighting for us and he's saying the things that we want to hear, and they're taking X, Y, and Z from us. That leads to chaos and that leads to fascism. We say people hate that word. A lot of people hate that word because it harkens back to what we fought against in World War II, and people think that can't happen here, and so they want to ignore it. But guess what? It's already happening here.
Yeah.
With books being banned, we're already headed down that road. With a 4-time indicted, 91, 92 felony counts, former president, twice impeached president, who is running for office again and has a chance of becoming president once again.
Yeah. And the word fascist should harken back, because if we don't study our history, we're doomed to repeat it. And we held back while the Nazis ravaged Europe, and until we were forced to go in and put boots on the ground. And here we have an opportunity to spend less than 5% of our defense budget without putting a single boot on the ground to stop Putin. We can't be timid about this like we were then, because it's the same fascism. It's the same, it's the same thing happening all over again.
It's the same situation.
If we give him Ukraine, or we stop funding Ukraine, he's going to keep marching into NATO. Then we have to send our young people.
That's what I tell people all the time. For that fraction of our defense budget, and you hear that argument. Oh, we're sending all of our money over to Ukraine, and when we've got issues here. Well,
5% of the defense budget. What is the defense budget for if not defending democracy?
Exactly.
I don't understand. Like, what do you want to spend that defense budget on? Like, just drills?
Right now, we have our troops here at home, and the Ukrainians are standing on the front lines of democracy right now. It's our fight as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's NATO's fight as well.
And it's not just. It is about Ukraine, but that's just where the front line is right now, right?
Front line is, exactly.
And if we can stop him without sending troops in, think of all the lives we'll save.
For a fraction of our GDP, for a fraction of our defense budget, is what it takes. I'd vote for, funding them. I'd vote for funding them more than what we're funding now, but that's just me, and I'm willing to compromise. But we have to help in this fight.
Me too. I'd spend half our defense budget defending democracy globally. What's it like I said, what's it for? We have these huge bloated defense spending budgets that go through, mostly because of Republicans. But then we find out it's just because they want contracts and money and war profit, and not to give a shit about actual democracy. Now that they're like, we have a thing that we can go do to defend democracy, and they're like, no, we don't want to spend it on that. And just blows my mind.
You're talking to a former compliance official for the Department of Defense. So my job was to stop fraud, waste, and abuse, and to cut some of those dollars out of those defense budgets that weren't truly needed. So that's,
mine too.
This is coming from me, someone who did this for years, who saved, millions, maybe billions of American taxpayer dollars. But that's what we're there for. And that money can go and be put to good use, helping fight for democracy. Simple as
that. And we've expanded NATO. We've expanded the NATO border around Russia. We've got this incredible alliance. And also talk just 1 second about talking about how this isn't just about one specific country, one sovereign state. But I think China is watching us closely to see what we're going to do, and because they want Taiwan. So, I think this extends to other dictators globally that are looking to see if we're going to keep our word as a nation.
Absolutely.
Right?
If we don't show China that, hey, this is going to be the response if you try and invade Taiwan. And yes, they're watching attentively. They've upped their war games around Taiwan, and those little threats, they're there. So they're watching attentively to see what's the American response going to be, what's Congress going to do to help Ukraine. Are they going to not fund them, or is America back, as Biden says? Well, we're going to see for how long. Hopefully we're back for good, but
yeah, we'll see.
We have to project strength here.
Yes. and our partnership that we're
Absolutely.
we're willing to keep our word.
Yeah, our partners have to trust us. I mean, let's think of the only time Article 5's been used in NATO. It was for the rest of NATO to come to our defense after 9/11. So, and yes,
Yeah.
people will argue that Ukraine's not a NATO ally. However, there are several NATO allies on its doorstep.
Right, and Putin won't stop
He
at
will not.
Ukraine.
He will not.
All right, tell everyone where they can find and help, or lend a hand, get information about Mission Democracy. I want everybody to know where they can kind of join this fight.
Well, if you'll go to www.missiondemocracy.org, check out our webpage. We talk about, we have all of our ads there that we want to start running nationally and in several of the swing states as we get more into the cycle. Out of the primaries and into the general election. One of the things that we're also going to want to do once the primaries are over is we're going to start, getting people out to knock doors and volunteer for some of the candidates who are running against the worst of the worst MAGA extremists. So if you want to help and volunteer, go to www.missiondemocracy.org. If you can, toss us a few bucks, $5, $10, $15, whatever you can afford to help us with this mission. We'd appreciate it.
Yep. And just like every dollar that we send to Ukraine, this will also be money well spent. It's a good value for your dollar. Thank you so much for taking some time to speak to me. It was, again, great to see you at Glenn Kirshner's thing.
Likewise.
And again, missiondemocracy.org. You can go there, help out, and just do whatever you can to get in this fight. It's so important. I mean, we are fighting for democracy again. And I appreciate all the work that you're doing in a bipartisan fashion. Thanks so much, Marcus Flowers.
Thank you, Allison. I appreciate you having me on.
All right, everybody, stick around. We'll be right back with the good news. Everybody, welcome back. It's time for the good news.
Who likes good news? Everyone? Then good news, everyone.
Good news, good news. And we so could use your good news these weeks. So please send it to us at dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. Whether you have confessions, corrections, good news, a shout out to a loved one, you want to play What the Mutt or Find the Cat or Opine on the Bovine, or if you want to send us pictures of frog orgies or baby photos or your Halloween costumes of Halloweens of yore, or the one that, the one that's coming up now. I would love to see that. It's spooky season. I love Halloween. It's one of my favorite holidays. So send us that. Shout out to a small business in your area, Pod Pet Tax. If you can't pay Pod Pet Tax, you can send us an adoptable pet in your area. Whatever you're like, a shout out to yourself. I love those so much. Just send it all to us, plus your dissertation and thesis titles. Again, that's dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. All right, first up. And you know what? Before I dive into this good news, I just one more fucking shout out to you, Dana, and all of that money you raised for HRC this weekend. That is such good news in these times. We need that kind of uplifting, incredible story with all those amazing people you got to spend time with and share a stage with. Just thank you so much for everything that you're doing.
Oh, AG, thank you. And I also want to give a big shout out to the trans youth out there. There was 4 trans youth on stage in front of 2,500 people after the President of the United States spoke, because they sponsored a trans prom. And just to know yourself that young and to just be standing in your power. It was so beautiful. These 4 kids that were on the stage and their parents, supportive audience and a standing ovation. And I just can't wait to see what they do in this world. I have no doubt some of them are going to run for office. They're going to change things. It's going to be amazing.
How fucking cool. For the rest of your life, you get to say that the president opened up for me.
I know, right? I know, seriously.
Brilliant, brave kids. Amazing. Thank you. All right, from Heather, pronouns she and her. Wednesday, my car was in the shop. On my way back to work early Thursday morning, it started making the strangest new noise. Ladies, I've never been so happy to hear someone eat a bug. Thank you so much for leaving that in. I laughed my ass off, then giggled the rest of the way to work. And even today, I keep replaying it to brighten my day. Oh, you're just replaying me eating a bug, Heather, to brighten your day. Well, you're welcome. She ends with, that is all.
It's a gift that keeps on giving, you are, my friend. That was very Yoda-like.
It is.
The gift that keeps on giving,
I got
you
a little
are.
protein. I got a little protein. I think it was a win-win for everybody, except maybe the bug.
Yeah, probably. All right, this one's from Susan G. There's no pronouns here, but we have just a soft correction. Hello to the lovely ladies of Leguminati. Hugs to you both today, but especially Dana. I wouldn't have been able to read that story either. Thank you, Susan. Now, the name Uribe is pronounced that way, not the way one of us said it before. It's Uribe, not Uribe. And thank you for all the work you put in to keep us grounded during these most tumultuous of times. You are both treasures.
Oh, Susan G., thank you. Next up from Lori, no pronouns. I've been listening for a while to the Daily Beans, Jack, and Aisle 45. For good news, especially since AG is a veteran, please note that the Wall That Heals, which is a 3/4 size replica of the Vietnam War Memorial that tours the country, visiting nearly 30 cities and sites per year, will be in Upper Providence Township, Montgomery County, PA, October 26th through the 29th. We need lots of volunteers for this around the clock. You can volunteer here, and there'll be a link in the show notes. Thanks for all you do. And if you haven't seen the Vietnam War Memorial, it is one of the most moving. And I've been to a lot of war memorials in my life, but the Vietnam War Memorial is so intense and amazing. And there's going to be the Wall That Heals. Again, that's Montgomery County, PA, in the Upper Providence Township, October 26th through the 29th. Link in the show notes to volunteer. Please volunteer if you can make it. And again, Lori says, thanks for all you do. You're welcome, Lori, and thanks for that heads up.
All right, this one's from Peter, pronouns he and him. Sending my sympathies to you, AG, for the bug episode. I wanted to share that once before I wore a prescription eyeglasses, but long after I really needed to, I was in the kitchen cleaning and saw a butter knife on the table that looked like it had honey covered with maybe some charred toast crumbs. My young daughter was at the table. Without saying a word, I proceeded to lick off the yummy honey. A Winnie the Pooh moment. The crumbs were ants, which I had slightly anise taste, and I swallowed them all. Wow, Peter.
Anise. I use that in my holiday, like, boozy apple cider mulled wine mix.
Oh, my goodness.
Star anise. Now we know I can just use ants.
I actually like the taste of anise, but not ants.
No. Thank you, Peter, though. Next up from Bean, pronouns she and her. So excited to hear my dearest dog, 89, in the good news last week. You asked, why 89? And I didn't want to leave him hanging. I adopted a wiry and disheveled 89 from a small, local, and now defunct rescue organization after she'd been adopted and returned, in quotes, by someone who I have to assume knew she was actually meant to be with me. As dogs tend to do, the moment I brought her into the house, she made herself right at home, so I named her after the address. I can't quantify the joy she's brought into my life. I hope everyone who is listening has found their joy, whatever form that may take for them. Thank you again. And does this dog got a filter? Because this is like model level.
Oh
dog.
my God, the dog is so cute. I don't think there's a filter. I think this is a good camera and an adorable dog.
Look at that, 89. Dude, she even has her own custom jacket with bling. It's bedazzled, and shoes and glasses. And look at her little 89 bedazzled collar. Man, Bean, you love this dog, and this dog loves you, and it's absolutely incredible. Thank you for sharing the story of 89 with us. May her memory be a blessing. She's so adorable.
Absolutely. All right, this one's from Piper, pronouns she and her. Wanted to add to the Tim Ballard commentary. I was an exotic dancer in Salt Lake City. Fuck yeah, Piper. Something most people would call a stripper in the 90s and early 2000s. There was no shortage of Mormon authority that came through the club. I bet. Let's just leave it at that. Now, these people were not necessarily doing anything wrong, by the way. They were coming to enjoy my work, and I was making a living off of them. But the hypocrisy, it did always bother me. We would joke about it backstage, but we would also get frustrated because they were pretending they wanted to change the laws about strip clubs while they were working and enjoying our work on their days off. Piper, thank you for this fucking submission. I think we see this all the time.
Right?
All the time. This is fantastic. And good on you. I hope you had a lot of money out of those hypocrites. That's all I'll say.
Yeah, Piper, you should write a book. Just saying. Get some insurance, get some insurance, and then write a book. But yeah, amazing. So yeah, Tim Ballard was the guy who the Sound of Freedom guy who was
Oh, yeah.
trying to save children from sex trafficking, then making these women pretend to be his wife, and then to make it seem realistic, he made him do all these sex acts, pretty much everything short of actual intercourse, and then doing it, under the authority, unbeknownst to LDS, but using the authority of LDS, but some bad people in the LDS to make all that shit happen. So I am not surprised to hear about this. And yeah, what a rad submission. Thank you so much. All right, next up from Shelley, pronouns she and her. Greetings, AG and DG. My good news is that we finally made it to spooky season. My favorite time of year for many reasons, but mostly because it gives me the opportunity to do one of my most favorite things: create horse Halloween costumes. I've been very fortunate that my horse and those of friends I've dressed up over the years have been very tolerant of these shenanigans. I've included pics of a few of my favorites so we can play a different sort of what the heck wine, where you can guess what the horse is dressed up as. Some of the costumes are more obvious than others. Also, since we're sharing, my dissertation title was Elucidating the Molecular Interactions of the Chicken Small Intestine by Integrating Omics Data Using Machine Learning.
My God.
Wow. You were checking out chicken small intestines and their molecular interactions using machine learning. Incredible study. Love all you guys and everything you do to keep us informed of current events. All right, so here we have the first photo. Obviously, we have Gilead horse.
Yeah.
From Handmaid's Tale. Very beautiful. Is that Prince? The second
I
one?
would
Is
say
that Prince of
that's
Purple
probably
Rain?
the artist formerly known as Horse.
Well, yeah, the artist formerly known as Horse. Wonderful. Okay. Here is something that's big and pink and poofy, and I don't know. Is it some Sex in the City character, maybe? Or I don't know. Do you have any guesses on this one, this third one?
Honestly, it looks like the thing I clean myself with in the shower, that little puffy, scrubby thing, but mine's not pink, it's gray, but it looks exactly like that. It could be.
The loofah. All right, here are the answers. Asha and myself as handmaids. We got that one. Breeze as Prince, Purple Rain. I even got the era. And Ross as a giant pink shower poof loofah. You got it. We got all three between the two of us. So that's pretty good.
This is great. All right. This one is going to close us out. This is from anonymous, pronouns she and her. Good day is my daily frijoles. So it wasn't so much accidental bug eating, but maybe coerced pressure bug eating. I've been hired to ferry an aircraft from the Bay Area down to Mexico City. When we entered the first port of entry and the local law enforcement was approaching the aircraft to check our paperwork with their guns on their shoulders and their dogs, the man who had hired me to move the aircraft stepped outside and just waved them off. They turned around and they went inside. Who am I flying? Now, when we got to Mexico City, he insisted on taking myself and the other pilot on a night out in the city. And everywhere we went, the crowds parted, and we went straight back to the VIP room. This guy that picked us up on the plane, who is his boss? Now, at one such location, they decided to have some fun with the gringos, and they ordered an assortment of fried bugs, worms and crickets, and I don't even know what else. Now, here's the thing. You don't say no to that guy. Not that I was afraid. We would have just laughed, and I had a great time teasing me. He was very funny, but there was just something about proving yourself in the situation that you've got to eat the bugs. It's critical to know that there had also been some, and I quote, "you have to drink our finest Mexican tequila moments before we ever got to this point." The worms tasted like Cheetos. The crickets were kind of like little chips. So wherever else I just tasted like fried breading. It was quite the adventure. It didn't end the night. When we went to the airport to fly back to the States, we realized our passports were not stamped inbound. It created a little bit of trouble, but we were quite obviously gringos, so there wasn't much trouble. But quite a good time we had. I still wonder who they were. I have my suspicions, but we'll leave it at that. I was hired to fly an empty plane, and an empty plane I flew. What?
Leave it at that. Who was it?
Anonymous. It's anonymous. You can't say.
Well, then you can just tell us. I think you should be able to just tell us. But that's just me.
Obviously.
I mean, at the Seas party, they could just wave off the federales to get a plane through? Like, holy majoli. That's a lot. But you ate the
That was
bugs.
impressive. That's a great story. And I bet you have all kinds of stories like this. Like, there's no way this is just the bug story, AG. Whoever this is has a lot of stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah, send them in, Anonymous. Don't hold back. But thank you for this submission. And thanks to everybody for all your submissions. We really need the good news these days. Please send it in to us at dailybeanspod.com and click on contact. Thanks to Marcus Flowers for the discussion today. Absolutely wonderful seeing and speaking to him again. Do you have any final thoughts before we get out of here today, my friend?
I think I just wanted to say how impressed I am with the youth. Like, I know a lot of us have been marching and fighting for decades. Some of you listening probably for over 50 years, 60 years. And I know that we worry and everyone's like, oh, this generation is lazy and they, blah, 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 blah. There's also a massive number of this young generation that is fired the fuck up. They're tired of people telling them that what you can and can't do with your body, whether it's reproductive health or trans rights, and they're going to be voting. And I just believe that they are going to make a difference. We're on the right path. I really do think the kids are all right.
I do too. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. We'll be back in your ears tomorrow. Until then, please take care of yourself, take care of each other, take care of the planet, take care of your mental health, take care of your family. Vote blue over Q.
And take everyone you know with you.
I've been EG.
And I've been DG.
And them's the Beans. The Daily Beans is written and executive produced by Allison Gill with additional research and reporting by Dana Goldberg. Sound design and editing is by Desiree McFarlane, with art and web design by Joelle Reeder with Moxie Design Studios. Music for The Daily Beans is written and performed by They Might Be Giants, and the show is a proud member of the MSW Media Network, a collection of creator-owned podcasts dedicated to news, politics, and justice. For more information, please visit mswmedia.com. MSW Media.